My name's Alea and welcome back to my channel if you've been here before. Today I want to talk to you about some romance books that I read. I did a little bit of a experiment and I read 4 hyped romance books, and today I'm going to tell you what my thoughts were. So I read these romance books, and some of them I read so that you don't have to. You're welcome. So there's a couple that I read that I really enjoyed, and there was a couple that I read that I absolutely hated. And so we're just gonna get into it and talk about them. So some of these might be kind of unpopular opinions. So if I'm hating on your favorites, I'm sorry. Don't take it personally. Everybody's entitled to their own opinions. If you liked these, I'd love to hear what you thought in the comments, and I'd love to hear things that you liked, things that you hated. Yeah, I'd also love to hear if you guys have any romance books that you'd like me to read, because I still want to read a couple other ones, because I'm still trying to get a taste for what I like in romance. So yeah, let's get into it. So the first one that I read is Sweethand, and this is a new release that just came out this summer, and I was sent an audiobook copy by Libro FM, so thank you to them for sending me that. Unfortunately, I hated it. It was rough. So right from the beginning, I was like, I don't like this. These characters are not for me. It's just not for me. So I DNF'd it, but I wanted to tell you why. So I wrote myself a little sticky note, like right after I DNF'd it, so that I would remember everything that I disliked right from the beginning. So the main thing I really hated was the male love interest. Like, he is just an asshole, and I didn't want to hear any more about him, frankly. So the whole story starts off, and the romance is between this guy and this girl, and they are the maid of honor and the best man at this wedding. And so it's like a few days before the wedding, and they just found out that the other one is like going to be part of the wedding party, and they're mad about it because they already have this like history of not liking each other. And that's like the premise of the book, right? But then we get into it, and it seems like the male love interest actually has always like kind of had a crush on the girl, and she just wants nothing to do with him because he's such an asshole. And so I don't think they ever should be together because he's terrible. So he like goes out of his way to be rude to her, and she is like a baker and stuff. So that's kind of why I was interested in the first place, is because I like baking, and she like owns her own bakery, and she makes a lot of cupcakes and stuff, and it's kind of like her thing. So I was like, oh, a baking romance, and both of the characters are black main characters. I was like, oh, this sounds great. No. So I'm like salty that I didn't like it. And I've seen some other people say that they gave it like 3 stars, like they thought it was okay. But yeah, there's just a lot of things I didn't like. And I don't like that the guy main character, well, one, he's an asshole, but also there's kind of this weird like male gaze thing going on where he was like looking at the female love interest and like her friend, and he's always talking about like talking about their bodies and stuff, but it was just like really uncomfortable, and I was not here for it. And then also, all the people who are part of this wedding are like rich. Like, besides the girl who's a baker, like everybody else there is just like rich and conceited and just like petty. It was just gross. Like, the whole thing was gross. I just didn't like the characters, I didn't like the vibe. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that. And then the next one that I read was Neon Gods by Katie Robert. So I've never read Katie Robert before, and I knew her stuff was like steamy and spicy, and I was hearing good things about this one, so I picked it up on a whim. And I actually really enjoyed this. So fair warning though, it is like very steamy and spicy. Like the sauce was happening, right? But this is a Hades and Persephone retelling, and I liked this one because it's not just like a smutty romance. Like, there's actually a lot of like fantasy plot. So it's set in this world where all the gods, like the Greek gods, are living in this like big city, and it's called Olympus, you know, as you might imagine. And Zeus is like basically running the show, and he's not a very good guy, and he basically like tries to pressure Persephone into marrying him, and he like does this big marriage proposal in front of like all the other gods, and she gets like really freaked out because she doesn't want to marry Zeus because his other wives, like the other Heras or whatever, have died like mysteriously. So she's pretty sure that he's been like murdering his wives, and she is not down. So Persephone like runs off from this big party, and she ends up like running into Hades, and it like goes from there. So I like this one because there's this whole fantasy plot with this city of Olympus and the other gods, and I really liked that Persephone and Hades like had all these steamy moments and stuff, but they also were like actually kind of dating. Like he actually like took her out, and like they went shopping, and like he showed her around the underworld and stuff, which is kind of like its own city like underneath the surface of like the earth or wherever where Olympus is. And so it's really cool, and I really liked that. And I also liked their banter a lot. So Hades is supposed to be kind of like, you know, like the bad boy, dark god of death man or whatever, but he's actually like pretty sweet in this one. Like, I mean, there's some sexy times and stuff, but like he's actually like really sweet and cool, and he really gets to know Persephone and actually like takes care of her and like looks out for her best interests and stuff, and is trying to keep her away from Zeus. And I enjoyed it a lot, I have to say. But beware, it is very steamy. But it was good, honestly. It was like really addictive too. I was reading it really fast, and I was listening to the audiobook, which I also recommend because it was actually pretty good. So there's my thoughts on that. I gave Neon Gods like 4 stars, so yeah, enjoyed it. Wasn't a 5-star, but I was impressed. So I would definitely read more from Katie Robert. And then another one I read was Radiance by Grace Draven. And look, okay, I've read a couple other books like within the last like 3 years or so. I read a few like romances a while ago, and I read Phoenix Unbound by Grace Draven a while back, and I really enjoyed that one. So I was like, okay, Radiance sounds like it's going to be really good. I know a lot of people really like it. I know Riley from Riley Marie is always raving about this. It's one of her favorite romances. And I picked it up and I read like 70% of it, and I was reading the ebook, and I was really into it. I really liked the fantasy world because it's a fantasy romance between this princess girl, and she's a princess, but she's like the kind of like a little bit of a distant relative from like the king and queen, so they're just trying to kind of like marry her off and get rid of her because her parents like passed away a long time ago, so she doesn't really fit in like in the palace and the court where she's from. And then she ends up having a romance with this guy who is the prince of this kingdom of people, well, of like non-human creatures. I forget what the name of their like species is, but they're like big, and their skin is gray, and they have like long dark hair, and a lot of them are like warriors and stuff. So he's like this big like kind of monstrous warrior prince dude, and I really liked their banter. I really liked the world building. I really liked all of the like background politics with his family. I thought it was really good. I thought it was interesting. The only thing is that at like 70%, like right before the like steamy stuff starts happening, because up until this point they're kind of just like getting to know each other and like kind of starting to fall for each other and stuff. But right around that 70% mark, there was this really weird thing that happened where the main male love interest kind of like gets really upset about this whole past trauma with his family that he was explaining to the girl that he's falling for, and he kind of got like really riled up about it and really like upset, and it was like at nighttime, and it was kind of like, oh, okay, like are they gonna like go to bed and like have like a comforting like let's talk about it moment? But it definitely wasn't like that. He like basically like pushed her out of the room and was like, I need you to like go to the other room and like lock the door because I'm really mad. Basically he was like, I'm mad and I'm horny and I'm in a really bad mood right now, and I'm like if you don't leave I might rape you, kind of a thing. And that like really, oh my god, I was so vexed, dude. I had to DNF it right there because I was so upset that he like flipped a switch and went from being like really cool to being like, oh, like kind of rapey and gross. And then they ended up like sleeping together after that, and it was like never mentioned again. And I was like, no, like that's not okay. That's gross. I don't know, I kind of felt like Radiance and Neon Gods were both like just really disappointing with like the male love interests. Like, just because it's a romance book doesn't mean that these guys can just like be assholes. I don't know, it just made me feel weird because I know like a lot of women read romance books, and it just felt like even in fiction we're setting the bar for men so low. And I just was so irritated. So I DNF'd Radiance, which I know is a really unpopular opinion, but you know what, I'm standing by it, so whatever. If you want to read Grace Draven, I think you should go and read Phoenix Unbound, because honestly that one was a lot better in my opinion. And then the last one that I picked up was One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. Now, listen, I picked this up and I thought I was going to hate it. I'm not going to lie to you. So I started listening to this on audio because I got the audiobook from Libro FM, so thank you, Libro. But I didn't like the audiobook for this. It just felt weird. Like, the story just felt really like conceited in audiobook form for whatever reason. So I stopped listening to the audiobook, and then I found the physical book at the library, and I was like, alright, whatever, like I'll pick it up and just see, and like if I still don't like it, I'm gonna like seriously DNF it. But I picked it up and oh my god, I totally fell into it. It was great. So this is about a romance between this girl named August who just moved to New York City, and she's like 23, she's in her early 20s, she's going to college, and she's just kind of trying to figure out who she is and what she wants. She's like changed her major a bunch of times, and she's kind of just like been floating from university to university, trying to figure out, you know, like what her thing is, you know. And then there's this other girl who she falls for named Jane, and Jane is on the subway, and she might be stuck there because it was like a time travel type of deal. I won't spoil it for you. But I really enjoyed this. This is great. It's definitely not the fluffy rom-com, like cheesy romance I thought it was going to be. It's a lot more than that. The romance is like, it's there, but it's a little bit more like on the back burner, I'd say. Like, this is a lot more about found family, and it's about August and Jane trying to figure out who they are, and I just loved it. Honestly, it's like super heartwarming, it's super funny. All of the roommates that August ends up living with are super cool. One of them is a psychic, one of them is like a science nerd, one of them is like an ex-architect who's now like a tattoo artist. Like, there's also a drag queen who's their neighbor. Like, everybody is super funny and super cool, and this was just great, honestly. It's great. I haven't figured out if it's like a 4.5 or a 5, but it was just fantastic. It reminded me a lot of The House in the Cerulean Sea. Like, it was that kind of like fluffy, makes you feel good, makes you happy, makes you laugh kind of book. So I definitely recommend this one if you are on the fence about it, or if you are looking just for like a fun read to make you feel good. I've been reading this at work, and it honestly makes work like so much better. So yeah, if you're gonna be stuck in a place where you're like, I don't want to be here and I need something to like escape into that's gonna make me feel good, go for this one, dude. This one's great. But yeah, so those are the 4 romance books that I read. I would say Neon Gods and One Last Stop are worth the hype, and Radiance and Sweethands are not. So sorry to break your heart on that one, but that's what I got. So I definitely want to read some more romances in the future. I know Tessa Bailey just came out with one I'm kind of interested in, and I think it's called It Happened One Summer, and I've heard that one's like actually pretty good, so I might check that one out. But if you have any romance recommendations or like fantasy romance recommendations, please leave them down below because I would love to know. And that's all I have for you today. I will see you in the next video. Bye!